He called her the poor dear innocent young creature, doomed to be my wife. Can you imagine hearing that? In 1818, those words sounded less like a heartfelt proposal and more like a grim pronouncement, a sentence to a life of duty. Back then, royal marriages were rarely about romance. They were about alliances, heirs, and preventing constitutional crises. Yet, against all odds, this particular union, born out of sheer political panic, blossomed into arguably the quietest, steadiest, and most genuinely affectionate love match the often scandalous Hanoverians ever managed. If you've always assumed that Victorian virtue, that sense of moral uprightness, began and ended with Queen Victoria herself, well, you're about to meet the remarkable couple who effectively rehearsed it first. So, try to picture this: a boisterous, sailor-swearing, rum-swilling, 52-year-old duke, already a father to 10 illegitimate children, with absolutely no expectation of ever seeing a throne. Got him. Now, juxtapose that image with a shy, devout 25-year-old German princess from a tiny duchy. A woman so unassuming, she still knelt for her evening prayers and quietly stitched her own mending. Add to this volatile mix just 1 week's hurried acquaintance, a rather rushed double wedding at Kew Palace, and an entire country holding its breath, desperately hoping for a legitimate heir. It sounds like a recipe for disaster, doesn't it? Yet, somehow, against every single odd imaginable, that improbable combination baked into what many consider the happiest, most enduring royal marriage of the entire 19th century. Stick around for the next few minutes, and we'll unravel exactly how the quiet, steadfast Adelaide managed to tame the last truly rogue king. William Henry was the third son of George III, which, in the royal pecking order, meant he was never really groomed for the crown. He was the naval career boy, happiest at sea, earning the affectionate nickname the Sailor Prince aboard ship. Ashore, though, his manners were, shall we say, a bit less refined, leading some to dub him the Buffoon Duke. For 20 blissful years, he lived a remarkably unconventional life with the celebrated actress Dorothy Jordan. They weren't just partners. They were a family, touring theaters, raising 10 children, all given the surname. Fitzclarence, and William never shied away from telling anyone who'd listen that he'd never sacrifice his comfort or his love for the stuffy demands of royal protocol. Parliament might have grumbled about his scandalous domestic arrangements, but William simply shrugged. Why bother? The heir, his young, healthy, and popular niece, Princess Charlotte, seemed destined for a long reign. Then, in 1817, tragedy struck. Charlotte died in childbirth, plunging the nation into a succession crisis. In a heartbeat, every unmarried prince became a national asset, and William's idyllic seaside existence with his beloved Dorothy was abruptly shattered, replaced by the grim realities of constitutional homework. Duty bellowed. And William, then a rather portly 51-year-old, finally saluted. Meanwhile, across the channel, Adelaide of Saxe-Meiningen hailed from a tiny, almost thumbnail-sized duchy nestled in what's now modern-day Thuringia. She was known for her quiet piety, her practical nature, and a famously gentle kindness, particularly towards animals. Court diaries even recall her as the only princess who ever apologized to a footman. At 25, by royal standards, she was well on her way to spinsterhood. Fate not uncommon for princesses of smaller German states. So, when Britain's envoy arrived, proposing a groom she'd never even met, Adelaide approached it with a pragmatic, almost businesslike calculation. This wasn't about love, not yet. It was a chance for a new life, a new country, a new family, and perhaps children of her own, a purpose beyond the confines of her small court. She accepted within 24 hours, writing simply, "I shall try to be useful." No grand visions of diamond tiaras danced in her head. Just the quiet, earnest hope of finding meaning and making a contribution. It was this humble desire for usefulness that would define her unexpected destiny. The fateful meeting took place on July 4, 1818, in the drawing room of Grillin's Hotel. William, still very much the sailor, lumbered in, with his characteristic sea-boot posture and a face weathered like ancient oak. Adelaide, ever graceful, curtsied deeply, spoke in careful, schoolbook English, and, in a touch that must have seemed both quaint and endearing, offered him a homemade pincushion as a gift. Legend has it that he muttered the infamous poor creature line under his breath, a gruff assessment of her perceived vulnerability. But then, so the story goes, he caught her gentle smile and felt an instant pang of shame. Just 7 days later, they walked down the aisle of Kew Palace. It was a rather rushed double ceremony designed for maximum efficiency in securing the succession. William's brother, Prince Edward, also wed Victoria of Leiningen that day. 2 brothers, 2 princesses, one overarching goal: babies, and lots of them. The pressure on both couples was immense, truly royal grade. Yet, by all accounts, William and Adelaide's wedding night was surprisingly gentle. William, known for his colorful language, later even boasted he'd forgotten to swear once, a small but telling sign of Adelaide's immediate calming influence. Adelaide's quiet hope for motherhood was met with heartbreaking challenges. Her first pregnancy tragically ended in miscarriage. Then, in 1819, she gave birth to a daughter, Princess Charlotte, who, to the couple's profound sorrow, died within hours. The losses continued. Twin boys arrived lifeless in 1822, and another daughter, Princess Elizabeth, lived a mere 6 months. It was a relentless series of devastations. Doctors offered no answers. And cruel court gossip whispered that Adelaide was too frail to breed. Through each crushing loss, William, the rough-and-tumble sailor, sat heartbroken in the nursery rocking chair, tears silently striping a face more accustomed to bracing sea winds than the sharp sting of sorrow. Adelaide, ever quieter, channeled her immense grief outwards, transforming her personal pain into public good. She poured her energy into supporting foundling hospitals, penitentiaries, and widows' funds. "I was sent to be useful," she reportedly told a lady-in-waiting, her voice steady despite her anguish. "And useful I shall stay." The public, witnessing their shared sorrow and Adelaide's unwavering compassion, noticed. Donations flooded in, and a new image, sorrowful but steadfast, deeply human, began to replace the old Hanoverian caricature of excess and indifference. Their shared suffering, ironically, deepened their bond and endeared them to a nation. Observers began to report a remarkable transformation. Within a year of their marriage, the once notoriously volatile William no longer roared oaths at his coachman. He still shouted, to be sure, but the volume visibly dipped, and apologies often swiftly followed. Adelaide's technique was disarmingly simple, yet profoundly effective. She treated him with the respect and affection to a decent man until he remembered he could truly be one. At breakfast, instead of chastising him, she'd genuinely inquire about ship rigging. At dinner, she'd praise his surprisingly detailed sketches of warships. William, who had been starved for genuine approval since his boyhood, absolutely blossomed under her gentle affirmation. Perhaps most remarkably, he invited his 10 Fitzclarence children to Bushy Park, his residence, and Adelaide, with astonishing grace and not a hint of jealousy, welcomed them all as part of their extended family. She even became a loving godmother to some. By 1825, even the notoriously cynical Whig press, never shy about criticizing royalty, had to concede, the Duchess of Clarence has performed what we feared required an act of Parliament. Her quiet strength had achieved what years of public disapproval never could. In 1830, George IV died, and William, at 64, unexpectedly ascended to the throne. The country was a powder keg, seething with demands for parliamentary reform, tensions running high with riots and unrest. It was a volatile period for the monarchy. Adelaide's solution to this national turmoil was brilliant in its simplicity. Visibility without politics. She understood that while she couldn't directly intervene in parliamentary debates, she could offer comfort and stability. She tirelessly toured slums, personally opened orphanages, and handed out warm stockings sewn by her own ladies, showing a tangible, personal concern for the suffering. When a hostile mob surrounded her carriage in Bristol during a particularly tense moment, instead of retreating, she calmly stepped down, walked directly into the crowd, and, with genuine concern, asked after their mothers. The effect was instantaneous. Stones were lowered, and angry shouts morphed into cheers. William, watching from the palace balcony, reportedly remarked, with a touch of awe, "She is my better half in every way but crown size." Reform Bill riots still rocked London. But the couple's combined, genuine popularity and Adelaide's calming presence gave the monarchy invaluable breathing room, while Parliament hammered out the greatest constitutional overhaul since 1688. She became a vital steadying force in a turbulent era. Aretic, era setisk, berwarp. Upon their accession, the new king and queen shocked courtiers with their refreshingly unroyal habits. They preferred eating supper at the surprisingly early hour of 6, shared just one servant between their dressing rooms, and were known to regift Christmas presents. Adelaide, ever practical, even recycled her wedding dress into altered linens, a testament to her frugal nature. William, for his part, insisted on paying off all outstanding palace grocery bills before even considering any grand renovations. Their thrift wasn't just a quirky habit, it was partly ingrained. Adelaide had grown up counting linen napkins in her modest German court, and partly a deliberate policy. William was determined to distance the crown from the gluttonous, extravagant image cultivated by his spendthrift brother, George IV. The result was a palace that felt, for once, like an ordinary, affectionate, and relatable home. Their young niece, Victoria, then a sharp-eyed teenager, visited often. She absorbed these invaluable lessons in royal restraint, domesticity, and the importance of public image, principles she would later export to define the entire Victorian age. This simple, honest approach to their lives helped to restore public faith in the monarchy. By 1837, William's health was rapidly failing. His heart, once so robust, was giving out. On June 20th, the evening before what would have been their 19th wedding anniversary, he turned to Adelaide, his voice weak but filled with love, and whispered, "I must keep breath till tomorrow, or the date will always sting you." He was determined to spare her that particular sorrow. He held on, just as he promised, dying in her arms at 7:12 a.m. the very next day, precisely 19 years after they first spoke their vows. Adelaide's scream, witnesses later recounted, was so soft, so utterly bereft, that it felt louder than any cannon. It was the sound of a private world ending. At his funeral, in a deeply personal and poignant gesture, she removed her own wedding ring, placed it gently on his coffin, and whispered, "Thank you for letting me be useful." It was her final, heartfelt acknowledgement of the purpose and love he had brought into her life. She wore mourning black for the rest of her days, a constant, visible testament to her enduring devotion. If these overlooked lovebirds and their surprising story caught your attention, please tap like so the algorithm can share this tale with someone who only knows the messy Georges. Hit subscribe for weekly dives into history that prove it's just gossip that survived. And often, the quietest stories are the most profound. Adelaide lived on for 9 more years, a widow devoted to good works. She continued her extensive philanthropy, funding churches, establishing schools, and notably creating the first society specifically for destitute women of good character. Her influence stretched far beyond Britain's shores. The city, named in her honor on Australia's southern coast, founded in 1836, became a haven for free settlers, carrying her reputation for fairness, charity, and quiet dignity halfway around the globe. But perhaps her most significant, yet often unacknowledged legacy was the stability she and William brought to the monarchy. They steadied the ship just long enough for a slim, self-assured young niece, Victoria, to confidently take the crown in 1837. Victoria entered adulthood knowing, from direct observation, that a royal marriage could be happy, that royal duty could be humane, and that royal spending could be modest and responsible. Every virtue, every admirable trait we now so readily pin on the entire Victorian era first flickered to life and took root in the short, unshowy, but deeply impactful reign of William and Adelaide. They left no surviving children of their own, yet they left a kingdom perfectly prepared for its longest, most iconic ruler. So, the poor dear innocent young creature, initially viewed as a mere political pawn, ultimately became the quiet savior of a dynasty. And the wild, boisterous Sailor King, whom nobody truly wanted for the throne, wound up proving that it's never too late to grow into the person history needs you to be. Their surviving letters, filled with charming spelling mistakes and lovingly scratched out endearments, sit preserved in the royal archives. Labeled simply WNA, open them, and you'll find the same simple, profound phrase repeated like a comforting lighthouse beam through the years. Be useful, be kind, stay together. Not a bad royal motto, not at all. And, as it turns out, an even better, more enduring love story.